I can't believe that we're about to go into our final case, our final set of award winners, and the final opportunity to learn from those whose work have been celebrated and chosen by our judges. But we are here. We are going into that final session. So we're going to go now into our corporate social responsibility panel, looking at CSR and a growing search for purpose and values. So I'm going to ask our speakers to join me on the stage, please. So joining me on the stage, we have Katherine. Hello, how are you?
Hi. Hi, how
we
you
have
can hear me?
Lena, we have Liam, and we have Roxy.
Hi everyone.
Fantastic.
Hi.
Well, everyone's really heard enough of my voice over the last couple of days. So can I ask you? I will ask each one of you to introduce yourselves. Say which organisation you're from and why you're here. Katherine, can I start with you, please?
Yeah, sure. Hi. Thanks for having me. I'm from Croud, and we are a digital marketing agency. I'm director of operations there, and my job is to look after the well-being and productivity of people. But slightly softer than HR, if you like.
Thank you, Katherine. Lena.
Hi, I'm Lena. I'm the Europe head of people at Innocent Drinks, and so full kind of generalist HR remit for the whole of the Europe people team. Wow.
It's keeping me going. I have to say, it's keeping me going.
I should have had some products around me, shouldn't I? So yeah, people and culture, and all things values and sustainability.
Thank you, Roxy.
Hey, I'm Roxy Erickson. I am captain of Team Beam at Sunbeam Studios, which is likely the world's most sustainable photo, film, and event space.
Thank you, Roxy. Liam.
Yeah, I'm Liam, and I'm one of the managing directors of Real Fundraising. We're a face-to-face fundraising and marketing company, and I mainly look after sort of the client relationships, but also have a huge part to play in company culture as well.
Awesome, thank you. So Liam, I will start with you. Can you tell me more about your organisation and how CSR forms such a key part of your strategy?
Yeah, definitely. So we're probably quite unique in the way we started our company, is that we started with CSR kind of less about strategy and more just part of our DNA. Our name stands for respect, ethics, activism, and love. That's the name that our employees helped us come up with. And, a lot of companies probably bolt CSR on as an addition at some point down the line. But as a B corporation, it's something that's really part of our core values and part of our purpose, and it's really sort of the pillars in which we formed the company.
And what do you do? I just want to be really clear so all the delegates understand how you go about your fundraising.
Yeah, sure. So we do public events in sort of shopping centres across the country, and we go door to door. So we may knock on your door one day, and we also do fundraising events in sort of high streets. So yeah, that's what we do.
Brilliant, thank you. Roxy, how about for you? How does CSR form a central pillar of what you're all about?
Well, a bit like Liam, we sort of took this environment first stance long before the term CSR was invented. So we work in fashion and film, which are two really environmentally devastating industries, and events and hospitality, which are traditionally really wasteful. And as we all know, we have 10 years to solve this devastating crisis called climate change, which COVID doesn't even match. So we decided to be that sustainable corner in those industries and try and be the leader, I suppose. So our first aim is to make enough profit to stay viable and to keep to stay interesting to the powers that be, but also secondly, we want to be carbon zero by 2023 and lead the way on that.
Thank you. And Lena, all the way through the last 2 days, we've been talking about this sort of triple responsibility to the organisation, to our people, and to the community. How does that operate within Innocent?
Yeah, so similar to the other guys, sustainability or CSR or however you want to call it has been a thread probably from the very, very early days of Innocent Drinks. And more recently, we've become a B Corp organisation, so best business. And the 3 pillars in there are people, planet and profit, and balancing people, planet and profit. So we've made our sort of vision or strategy being good all round and good all round against those 3 pillars. And so we're looking at aspects such as carbon neutrality, but we're also making sure we're putting a great focus on inclusion and diversity, for example. So we are really trying to look at all aspects of it, because that's the B Corp criteria as well, but it's also things that have been naturally threaded into our culture as we've grown.
Thank you. And Katherine, is this all resonating for you in terms of how you go about things at Croud?
It is. It's slightly different for us because we're a digital marketing agency, fairly small. We are 220 people, but we were designed to be kind of run from a network of experts that run outside of the business, and they work anywhere in the world. So we're kind of focused on doing great work without any sort of travel or necessarily face-to-face interaction, if you like. Apart from our internal FTEs, obviously. We focus a lot on CSR, basically driven from what our employees want. And yeah, it's really broad, you know, as everyone's saying. So we focus a lot on things like D&I at the moment, particularly. I want to talk about that a bit later, and charitable giving specifically. But yeah, slightly different because we're an agency. And
sticking with you, Katherine, is it a business imperative? Yeah, when we've got 400 organisations, give or take, as part of this conference. So for all 4 of you, it's very clear that it's at the core of why your organisations exist. But more broadly, do you see it as a business imperative?
I do. You know, people more and more now, employees and clients. So for us, clients, they want to know, you know, what are you doing to be socially responsible? And that could mean a lot of things to a lot of people, right? But, you know, what's your strategy and why is it any good? I think it's really, really important. Yeah, definitely. One thing, like, to jump straight into a specific, is when the Black Lives Matter movement was happening in the summer, you know, we had employees and clients demanding to know what our response was off the back of that, you know, pretty much immediately, because people, it's all intertwined now, you know, work and life is completely intertwined. So it's our responsibility to have a plan on that, I suppose, and an action. So yeah, I see it definitely as a business imperative. It's not just a HR function. It's a business strategy, definitely.
And Lena, within Innocent, as the brand has grown, because it came from, I seem to remember part of the founder story was, the caps went in a bin right at the start as to whether the first consumers would decide whether the business should go on or not. But now, Innocent has grown so successfully and internationally. How do you maintain that business imperative, or does it get lost along the way?
Good question. I think our brand is big and has a big reach. As a company, we're still sub 1,000 people, but we are growing in terms of our global foothold as well. So absolutely, it's something that is absolutely central to our strategy. Our company scorecard, again, back to B Corp, has the B Corp measure on. Every single person on their objectives, we call them my roles. Every single person has to have force for good measure on there, we're calling it. So everyone has a force for good role to play in the business. So for me, it's around inclusion and diversity because it's a subject I'm passionate about and something I'm involved with, but it could be any of those things under people, planet or profit. So we expect everyone to do that. And then when we go into a new country, for example, we've just been going into Asia, so Shanghai, Tokyo. We've done a really detailed piece of work before we launched to translate the values, but also to translate what our core pillars are around how we do business, because we've always professed to do business in a better way. So we make sure that people understand that message. And probably on that bottle you've got there on the back of it, there'll be something around all of those things that you can read immediately. And it's the same in Japanese or French or wherever you might be. So we're shouting that message externally and just as loud internally in all our offices.
Roxy, and you were talking about the sectors you're working within. Now, I seem to remember the research is that oil and gas sector is the #1 global polluter. I think the global fashion industry is the second largest polluter in terms of its impact on our planet. So the imperative is clear from a planet perspective. How do you ensure that it builds into the businesses that you partner with so that it's an imperative for them?
Well, that's actually an interesting question, but I going back to the original one about whether it's a business imperative, I want to take a bit of an opposing view, which is, sadly, I don't think it's a business imperative right now. Obviously, I think it's great, but I think it's still easier to be a dictator than a people-focused leader, given capitalism. So, if it was a business imperative, we wouldn't have things like slave labor, no living minimum wage, pollution, etc. So I think while we all sort of live and breathe this, I think it's important to recognize that there are people making millions and billions without giving a hoot about CSR. That shouldn't be a reason. And going back to what you said about fashion, first I want to clear the air a little bit. Yes, fashion and textiles are probably the second most polluting in the world. It's a bit, you can't really differentiate due to unclear supplier chains. But yeah, terrible. Do my clients care what we're doing? Absolutely, more and more. But could I still run my business without doing these things and be profitable? Probably. Will I be able to in the future? I sure hope not. And I guess as far as my supplier chains, we're actually just this week sending out a bit of a strong mission statement to all of our suppliers. We sent out one in January saying this is what we expect from you by the end of 2020. And so this was our follow-up, asking how they're doing, and also offering free consultation to all of our suppliers to try and get them on the right page. And then we'll take it from there.
Thank you. That's really insightful. And for you, Liam, I mean, in terms of the organisations that you work with, how are you able to evolve their message and really amplify their ability to gain support and enable them to deliver the services that they need to?
Yeah, I think for ourselves, because 90% of our clients as an agency are charities, you know, we need to probably go a lot further than sort of the average business in terms of our values, our ethics, our CSR. And our charity partners really do recognize that by having it embedded in our DNA, that we are giving all of our employees increased purpose. You know, we're retaining more staff, and when, you know, you're subject to the level of compliance that we are, and you have the potential for brand damage you do with some of the high profile charities we're working with, if a fundraiser does something wrong, it's really important that those fundraisers really live and breathe our values. So we hire on values, we look at cultural ads rather than just cultural fits. We make CSR part of everyone's role. And actually, I love, Lena, your suggestion of you know, everyone having a force for good part in their appraisal. We're going to probably steal that idea. I think it's brilliant because it just gives everyone that additional bit of purpose to really sort of, you know, allow themselves to grow. And for us, by sort of ingraining all of these things, we use a peer-to-peer recognition software for all of our staff to kind of recognize when those values are put into place. And through surveys that are on that, we found that globally, about 18% of people that use this same software in other companies would take another job for a 10% pay rise. Whereas for real fundraising, that's actually 84% would turn that job down. So, only 16% of our employees would take another job for a 10% pay rise. And at the same time, 90% of our employees live up to our values. So we know by really ingraining that into everything the company does, that's retaining the right sort of talent to then represent the really high profile charity brands that we do.
That's fascinating from a retention point of view. And how does that translate into acquiring the talent that you need? How is that part of the proposition when you're seeking to bring new people in?
Yeah, so we're in a position whereby we're probably attracting trying to attract more millennials. We know that sort of from studies done by LSE that sort of about 3/4 of millennials would actually take into consideration the purpose of an organization over the pay scale. So we have to be really, really clear on that when we're hiring. And our whole interview process is all about our culture and the values of that individual. So we ask questions about people's opinion on the Black Lives Matter campaign. We ask questions about people's opinion on recycling in the UK. Could it be better? And things like that, how they put that into practice in their own lives. We ask people to talk about things that they're personally passionate about that are, going to allow us to have an insight into their values, because we then know that if they're a value fit to us, they're going to be a value fit for our clients as well.
And Roxy, for you, how do you connect into that purpose and meaning when you're seeking to build the team?
We have a very strong no dickheads policy at Sunbeam Studios. We are slow to hire, for sure. We do a lot of meetups with potential candidates first. We definitely seek to have conversations. We hope that the interviews are a two-way process, and that they are getting to know us as much as we're getting to know them. For the majority of staff that we're looking to hire, we like to do trial days and make it very clear that this is for both sides, that they get to see us, we get to see how they would solve a problem, and push. That also allows them to be in our office environment, getting to know the other team members. This was what we were doing pre-COVID, should I say. Now there's a lot more remote conversations. But we want, I think for me, it's fundamental that that new staff member is already over those first day jitters by the time they come to their first day, that they already know the full team, that they know their way around our big building before they even work for us. And in that way, they have made the decision to be part of our value system already, because otherwise they wouldn't have accepted the job, because they've seen all of our hidden corners.
So, Lena, two questions. One, do you have a no dickhead policy? And two, how have you managed to maintain or evolve your approach to hiring during COVID-19 and lockdown?
We don't have an explicit no dickhead policy. The party line would be we recruit against our values, of course. So hopefully that weeds them out. But I was going to ask Roxy if there's a good question you have to weed them out. So we have quite a structured process, 3-stage process, and it always includes a business case or a challenge at the final stage, which is basically a piece of the job. So let's see you in action. Let's see how you enjoy it, but also how you react to it and how you present back. And yeah, we've definitely had to adjust a little bit during COVID, because one of our big things is people come to Fruit Towers and there is an instant kind of visual and a sense around what the culture is as soon as you walk in through the doors. And we haven't been able to give people that. So, you know, we're sending out the employer videos, directing people to the site, giving them the same sort of feel as much as possible through the process, of taking a bit of an extra time to explain where the organisation is going and what we're about. So building some of that in. But yeah, we've made some senior hires through virtual times. We'll have to see if they are successful. But I think because of our quite structured process, the kind of questions we ask people, values and capabilities, and the number of people involved, means that we can usually find the right people still. And people in London, and more so in Europe, are going back to the offices now. So that also helps for getting straight back into the reconnects and putting in the new starter lunches and the normal induction feel that you would get. Was that, what did you say? There was 2 questions, Tim? Did I miss one?
No, that was perfect. Thank you, Katherine. Thank you. I was actually enjoying the children in the background, but yeah, you're absolutely right. It was.
I'm so sorry if everyone can hear that. That's
it was lovely.
I had the window
that time of day.
I had the window open because it's hot, and believe it or not, it's one child, my child, in the garden with my husband. I did ask them to go out, but apparently that's too difficult.
Well, they're clearly having a lovely time in the sunshine. And the Croud, how do you focus, bring alive that purpose and meaning as you attract and bring people into the organisation?
Yeah, so I mean, similar, particularly this year, obviously we've had to adapt, as everyone else has been saying, really, and recruiting on Zoom and everything is challenging for both sides. We have sort of had like creative moments where we've actually like had candidates meet in the park, where someone's gone for a socially distanced walk with them, just to talk a bit more about what the culture and feel is at Croud, and does that suit them? Does that, are they suiting us? Can we make it work? And we have recruited, quite a lot. I had people start in lockdown as well, which is really difficult. Echoing what Lena said about, when you couldn't go into the office, which is where you would normally get that automatic culture feel, wouldn't you? We've spent a bit more time focusing on, the welcome pack that people receive when they join, when they're at home, is, maybe a little bit more thorough, a bit more detail about who we are as a company and what we focus on. In terms of employee retention, we really always focus on what's relevant and important to our employees. So, this year in particular, we've probably spent much more time and money on sort of fundraising for things that our staff really, really care about, and giving our staff time as well to go and volunteer or whatever in the community, or, back in sort of April, May, it was like volunteering for the NHS on Croud time if you want to, just encouraging things like that. And that has paid us back in dividends, I think, in terms of morale and productivity, as well as working towards that overall CSR responsibility, I suppose. Yeah.
And Roxy, have you seen that as a trend as well, in terms of your organisation, or other examples you've seen of people stepping forward to do the right thing during the pandemic? Because it's been such an opportunity, but it's noticeable who's grasping it and who isn't.
We've had a very different experience in COVID. We are venue based, so overnight we lost. We're expecting about a 30% loss in turnover this year. We also had about 20% of our staff get COVID early on, so that was fairly awful. And because of the loss of an entire department, which is events, hospitality, weddings, we've had to make some deep staff cuts. So our morale, by April was about as low as a company could ever get. And I was really thankful that we had put all of the CSR already in place before that we had a strong team, and we had that resilience already built in, so that I just don't know what would have happened to a team that was hit that hard if they weren't already so personally invested in what we're trying to achieve. If we had just been a job for them, I don't think we would have gotten the turnaround that we've gotten, which is we had our best months ever in July and August. And we've seen the most magnificent turnaround that I think a company could expect, given how we looked back in April. But we really had to recenter and refocus. And so when we were allowed to reopen, I think we were the first photo studio to get bookings. We were the first photo studio to reopen. We were, kind of on our own with all of the risk assessments of what that meant to have clients coming in May. And we also realized that we needed to realign to our sustainability. So we've doubled down. We did a massive audit during lockdown, and that was fantastic. But my team has definitely had a shock to the system, and I'm having to work really hard to rebuild what we lost there. I would add that actually the flip side is we have loads of old staff members coming back that had left Sunbeam long ago, but have since lost jobs at other studios and are all freelancers and need work. So our team is now probably the strongest team that we've ever had, because we've gone back generations. So in terms of, and they all left, went and worked for other companies and came back. So the amount of intel we're getting and feedback about what other companies and our competitors are doing right and differently from us and wrong has been great. So yeah, we've come back stronger.
It's fascinating that I always think it's quite often an underplayed strength of organisations. Your alumni, it's something that you think of schools and universities playing really, really well, but very few organisations really understand the strength they have with their alumni if they manage the breakup well.
Yeah.
And really understand that these those that are leaving are ambassadors and can come back so powerfully in the way that you described. It's a great example. Thank you. And Liam, how about for you? What do you see through the pandemic, either at Real or more broadly, where organisations are successfully taking the opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, we're in a position, I guess, similar to Roxy, because we're in such a face-to-face environment. I think 13th of March, we pulled all teams, and I think lockdown happened a couple of days later. So from that point of view, for about 2 weeks, we had all of our staff on full pay. And then obviously the furlough scheme was announced, and we had all of our staff furloughed until the end of July. So a very, very long period. There was only just a handful of us working in the business. For us, it would be incredibly challenging to just turn off our CSR and to turn off the additional things that we do within our community. We've seen, about 12 billion knocked off the income of our clients and the charity sector as a whole. So, huge amounts of money that have been knocked off there. So it was incredibly important for us that we did whatever we could, throughout lockdown and as that happened. So, it was a lot of support to the wider community on social media, forming a face-to-face forum to help smaller charities to look at diversifying their income. Like everyone here probably as well, getting furloughed staff to volunteer, both at the NHS, local small organisations, and anywhere that they saw fit for where their passions lie. We run a fund that's contributed by our employees. It's our ethical fund, and that's matched by Real, and it's donated to small causes, and we kept paying that out throughout the months of lockdown, with no income coming in, not a penny. We still paid out almost £20,000 to small causes across the UK and international causes as well that had been, you know, devastated by having their one source of funding sort of turned off overnight. So what that actually meant for Real, as a reflection, was that in our staff surveys towards the end of lockdown, 100% of our employees are now recommending us to their friends. 100% of our employees would turn down jobs if offered a 10% pay rise, and 100% of our employees have said that they support our values. So it's definitely paid off, even though it was still the right thing to do. And I think even if it hadn't have paid off, it would have still been the right thing to do and the thing that we would have done. It's
where we find out if the words actually translate into actions, isn't it? When it's on.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And you know, there's a lot of organisations probably not present at this conference that did the complete opposite. At the beginning of lockdown, took advantage of their employees, didn't take public safety into consideration, and I think over time they will be remembered for their actions as well.
I think that's really interesting, Liam, because when I remember it was probably April time, someone internally at Croud shared a website that had been set up to label companies that had not done the right thing in this time. Mm-hmm. And anyone could go on there and write a review of these companies. I'm not going to name any, but you can imagine who's on there.
Yeah.
And this stuff won't go away. Like, it's accessible from everybody, and people love to read stuff like that. So I think this year has really accelerated, the responsibility that we have to have. And it goes back to that business imperative. It will help, hopefully, Roxy, help it make it more of an imperative, because they won't survive, these companies, I don't think, in the end.
And I think what we're seeing is those stories actually translating across into news stories. You don't have to go searching on a website. You actually see them, in the business news, or actually in the main in the main news, because there's such an appetite for are you going to do the right thing? Mm-hmm. How's it been for you and the team, Lena?
So similar. We haven't had to furlough anyone. We've actually probably recruited the same number of people we were planning to recruit this year. It's quite a decent amount. But we have been encouraging people to use their volunteering days to support. Lots of people just naturally supported the NHS and things like that at the start. We obviously gave away lots of drinks when all the shops closed and things like that, and diverted them to charities, which we do with our waste usually anyway. And then we obviously give 10% of profits to charity, but we also have a charitable fund that we can give donations through. So we've definitely done that as well. I think we gave $500,000 altogether specifically. So yeah, kept that alive.
Lots of great examples there. Now, as we come to the end of the session, I've been asking all of our speakers as we've gone through if there's any experiments or tests or an action that they could recommend to delegates to take back to their organisation. So I'm going to ask each of you if there's something that you've learned, and it might be through what's happened through this year, or something that's been really powerful that's that you've tested within your organizations, and just what are you thinking of that? I will share one that was actually came up in one of the networking sessions earlier. We're talking to one of the delegates who works within a veterinary hospital in Atlanta, and she was saying that how do you bring this to life, the power of what we do. And as part of the interview process, she was actually walking a laptop around the hospital, introducing candidates to people within that environment, showing what was happening that day, really seeking to break down the barriers, and just keeping it really simple, but just making those human connections. And it was again a simple action, but really spoke about her pride and commitment to the organization and the people that she was talking to. So Roxy, you leant forward, so I'm going to go to you first.
Is the question one experiment in general or one experiment in hiring?
Well, firstly, I'm going to ask what's just appeared next to you, because it looked like a fox.
Sorry, my cat has just woken up from.
That's fine. Just checking. Just checking. No, if there was, that's okay. What did the fox say? No, just like if there was, one piece that you would give to the attendees of like, think about this or try this, or what does this mean to you? What would you give as a takeaway from the session?
For just general CSR?
Yeah.
Oh, that's such a big question. Well, I'll say, so we ran the first of a series of panels in February last year. Well, it was supposed to be a series. It was all about sustainability in production and sort of short form and advertising. But one of the things that so lots of the people that were coming to that panel were actually our clients or our suppliers. And one of the things that I put forward there as a challenge was to turn something down. So turn down a client that you're not happy with, find another supplier that's doing a better job, turn down that thing that's stretching you a bit too far, and turn down something that makes you a bit uncomfortable, but then you find out that that doesn't break you and that you're still just fine having said no. Because I think part of our culture right now says, do it, do it, do it. And all clients are good clients and you just get in the money. And I think, so we decided we have a big space. It's a drive-in space. We're actually listed the first car factory in the UK historically. So we get a lot of questions from car companies that want to do product launches of their new car. And so we just decided we were going to turn down any car company that wanted to show a car that wasn't electric or at least a hybrid. And so we actually turned down 2 last year, and we were okay. It was fine. So I guess that's how I look at it.
Thank you.
No,
that was really powerful. Really powerful. Thank you, Liam.
Yeah, I think for us, I think the biggest takeaway would be sort of head to toe feedback within the organisation. So, we survey our field from the minute they join us. They're providing feedback which is listened to, taken on board, accepting when things that need to change, and actually not doing something because you just have always done it. Taking that feedback on board and implementing the change that comes from even from the people who are not the managers, not the directors, not the senior management team, and that sort of specifically related to CSR is let them choose the causes that they want to support. Make sure that they're really bought into using their activism days, which is what we call their paid volunteering days, to go and support organisations that they are really, really passionate about, and just constantly listen and adapt and do that. Don't be afraid to ask for criticism from everyone in the organisation and take it on board and implement it.
Thanks, Liam. Thank you, Katherine.
Well, I don't know what to add. I want to say all of that, definitely. I think that was really inspiring, both of you. I guess the only I would add to is, keeping everything personal, even while we are working from home and not spending much or any time with our colleagues, just still, doing things that keep it personal with them, whether that's just a 10-minute check-in on a phone call, how are you feeling today, or jumping on a cause that's important to them. So when we've got one of our team members is from Lebanon, and when there was the explosion in August, we straight away started fundraising. We didn't ask him, do you want us to? We obviously just did it. Literally, people felt so strongly about it. We raised just under £3,000 in like 48 hours, and you can immediately see the obviously the actual benefit of doing that, but then the personal benefit to that person, because he said openly in a chat group across the whole business, Croud really represents who I am right now. And that to me was just like the epitome of doing the right thing. So yeah, just doing it and keeping it all up, I suppose.
Thank you. I thank you for sharing that. I really felt that. That was really powerful. Thank you. And Lena.
So building on the personal connection, this is probably more of a light touch thing. So we've had to obviously move to the virtual world, and it's surprising actually how Innocent weren't particularly virtual before. We're quite a physical culture, we realise, and so then you really start feeling some of the gaps in the culture as well, and particularly around our formal communication mechanisms. It's a very informal culture again. So we had to plug some gaps, and I think there's just a couple of nice examples of how we've tried to keep that connection up. So we obviously had to tell the whole company we're not taking them away on their nature weekend, which is June holiday that they get for a weekend, and we usually go abroad, and you know, it's an all expenses paid weekend, and so who doesn't want to do that? But instead we put a lot of effort into creating an amazing video, made sure that everybody had a little pot to go and get popcorn and beer, essentially, and sit in their living room and watch it like a movie. And everyone was on some sort of WhatsApp group or whatever that they could then connect and basically still have a really great time with. And then the other thing, our CEO has been calling every single person up on their birthday randomly just to say happy birthday, which has meant he's connecting with everybody on Europe, and at this rate, he's going to have spoken to everyone by next year. So I think just little touches like that have meant people stay a bit more connected in the virtual environment.
Thank you all so much. That is just wonderful. So it's so practical, so real, so many takeaways there as to, and just to challenge people's ways of thinking, but also, you know, what can they actually go and put into effect and seek to instill within their organisation. Thank you so much for taking the time to share that with us. Congratulations on the work that you're doing, and really excited to hear from all of you what comes next. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everyone.